So trust is a very interesting thing. I remember getting ready to hop on an airplane. Late teens, early 20s. I don't know, for some of you, maybe you've flown all your life. I had not. This is new experience for me. And I got to be honest with you, a little nervous about it. I don't know if any of you can understand that or appreciate that. But I was struggling a little bit. Not crazy, not like full on, like sweats or anything, but just, is this a good idea? I don't think God created this thing. You know, why am I doing this? And it dawned on me. And this was the thing that got me over the hump. I think that pilot, and hopefully his co-pilot, wants to live every bit as much as I do. Like, I don't think they want to die this night either. So somehow that enabled me to trust the pilot a little bit better. Like, he really, he had his best interest at heart as well as mine, and together we were going to make sure that this was okay. Every once in a while, this gets me. I don't know about you, but I'm driving my car, and I'm coming up to a very busy intersection, and why do I trust that everyone's going to obey those lights? Does that ever get you? Like, don't let it. That's not a happy place when you start questioning everything like that. No, we trust it. Red means stop, green means go, right? Yield lanes in Victoria don't mean anything. Nobody has a clue what that is. Holy cow. Here we go again. How about when you go to a restaurant? Do you ever, not very often, but every once in a while I go, what are they doing back there with my food? Right? And you just kind of, like, why do we trust them? Like, why don't we have open kitchens? We have them in our houses, right? The restaurants that are kind of cool is when they're doing the food right in front of you and they're smacking their knives on and flying food everywhere. At least we can trust. Trust is an interesting thing, right? I don't know if in your family or maybe your work environment or whatever, but in our work environment, there's someone I don't trust at all when they're behind me. I don't want them to walk behind me. I do not want this person to just kind of come up behind me, because what this person seems to take great delight in doing is reaching out and grabbing me and like just poking me in the ribs. And that just sends me through the roof. The other day, got back from Hawaii, by the way, Pastor Steve. Whoa, love you, buddy. Not when you do that. But trust is interesting. We have a choice to make as to what we trust. As I was thinking about Psalm 23, I was thinking, David seems to entrust his life, right? And entrust means to commit to another with confidence. And that is certainly what we sort of feel and what we get out of the psalm. David wrote this psalm. David was a shepherd. David was the son of a shepherd. He understood, and when he penned these words, he had specific things in mind, some things, and frankly, as someone who's not a shepherd, who doesn't even like eating lamb, right? Like, I don't know a thing about it. I really enjoyed this past couple of weeks as I was just thinking about this message and doing a bit of research on what it is to be a shepherd and what sheep are like and what all of that means. And I came across a book. I don't know if you're like this. I bought a book 25, 30 years ago. It was discount, right, on one of those discount tables. They get me every time. I got a stack of 6 of them I bought recently. Anyhow, I bought this book 25, 30 years ago. I've never opened it. Sitting in my office thinking, Psalm 23, very familiar psalm. Why are you trying to preach on a very familiar psalm? And I switched my chair around, and right on my shelf was a book I had not seen, Psalm 23. Fascinating. Written by Philip Keller, born in Kenya, 1920, went to the University of Toronto, lived in BC for 4 decades, and actually lived on Vancouver Island. And was a shepherd for 8 years. Understands what it's to be a shepherd. And so as I share some of the insights today, these are not my own, trust me. These are some very interesting insights from an actual shepherd. Psalm 23, David, an actual shepherd. We're going to learn from him this morning. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. For a sheep to be able to lie down and sleep, 4 things have to be dealt with. First one is is they can't be afraid. Now, I don't know if you can relate to that at all. Can you fall asleep easily when you're afraid? Right? No, we can't either. So here, check one, similar to sheep. All right? Second thing, I didn't realize this, but sheep, and it makes sense that they are, sheep are very social animals. They go around in a flock. They're very, very social animals. And if there is tension within the flock, right, if there's some animosity going on in the flock, I don't know how shepherds know this, but they just do. They have a hard time sleeping. How about you? If you have some relational tension, when you hit the pillow, what are you doing? You are not sleeping, right? It's a struggle when there's relational and social tension. When sheep are aggravated, sort of agitated with some things that are going on, very difficult to sleep. And I would suggest we could agree with that as well. And then the last thing that makes it difficult for a sheep to be able to lie down and find rest is when they are hungry. When they don't know where the next meal's coming from, when they don't know, if you like, when the next bill's going to be paid, they have a hard time sleeping. And again, I would suggest we're there. We're there. It's the way we are, that restlessness, that discontented, that agitated state. And the shepherd comes along, David says, and leads the sheep. And leads them to quiet waters, right? That sense of that green pasture. Like it's just got this amazing, no, I didn't Photoshop it picture, right? Just amazing picture, what you sort of envision there. It provides nourishment, protects them, helps them to be at ease and at peace so that they can lie down and find refreshment for their soul. And you see what David is saying right off the top, and what he's asking us, and what this psalm is asking us, is yes, there is a shepherd, and that shepherd is my Lord, and I lack nothing. And that's the question of this psalm. Those fears, those anxieties, those things that agitate you, those relational things that are struggling within your world, your needs, your hunger, your resourcing. Can you trust God with that? Can you lie down and trust God with it? David says, I can. David says, for sure I can. He is my shepherd. He's not just a shepherd. He says, my shepherd. And David declares with great confidence his commitment. He entrusts himself to this shepherd. Now you see, David was a shepherd, was the son of a shepherd, and so he understood sheep. Now sheep are interesting in that if a sheep is not led, a sheep will walk the same path every day and go to the same feeding spot every single day. And so as you can imagine, if they do that, they literally will wear this little path out, which will turn into a rut, which will turn into literally a little gully. Like they just will do the same thing every day. They'll end up at the same feeding spot every day. And if any of you know anything about agriculture, which I don't really, Costco or Save-On's lettuce department, right? Like I don't know anything about that stuff, but apparently you go to the same spot every day, you're just going to eat it dry. Like you're going to ruin it to where it doesn't replenish. And David, as a sheep, knows that unless he's led, he can wind up doing that same rut, sort of that same thing every day. He can end up in places, that same spot every day, that can end up just ruining his life. And so he knew, not only as a sheep himself before God, our shepherd, but also as a shepherd with his sheep, that they needed guidance. He needed guidance. We need to be led to new areas, fresh things, healthy pastures. We have our ways and our habits. They're not all great habits and ways. And we need a shepherd to guide us, to take us into new ways of thinking, new attitudes. Isaiah chapter 53:6 says, all we like sheep have gone astray. We've turned to our own way. In other words, we don't need a shepherd, is what Prophet Isaiah was saying. Proverbs chapter 14 and 16 says that there is a way that seems right unto man, but at the end it leads to their own destruction. And sheep left to themselves can quickly find themselves in a place of destroying themselves, harming themselves. Verse 4, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Now, one of the roles of a shepherd is, as winter sort of moves on and we're heading into spring, and this always confuses me, but the snow recedes. It kind of goes up, but when the snow is receding, it's actually going down because the water's going, and I start thinking of hair receding. I get kind of confused. But the shepherd, both of yesteryear and of recent practice, will lead his flock to these higher ranges where there's the lush green grass, where there's the babbling brooks and fresh water for his sheep. And one of the interesting facets of this is that when the shepherd takes the sheep up, leads it away from the farm and takes it off on this journey, that shepherd never leaves the sheep. It's such a great picture and reminder that our God never leaves us. He is always with us. I love one of the insights that Mr. Keller shared in his book, and I've heard it before, but when I read it last week, again, it just struck me, and he said one thing about the shepherd is the shepherd never leads the sheep where he or she has not already gone. Love that. Just right away, it reminded me that's exactly like Jesus. God out of heaven came down and lived on earth, understands what we go through, the temptations, the struggles, the pressures. He understood it all, and he lived it all. And so our shepherd, Jesus, never leads us in a place. He doesn't say, yeah, go, good luck. Have fun with that. I don't know, try it out. That's never the deal with Jesus. Only leads us where he's been. Only calls us to do things that he knows are the best for us. As the shepherd would go and check out this range, these higher elevations, these places that he lead it to, he was carefully checking things out and ensuring that it was a good place to eat, that it was a safe place for them. He's fully aware of where he's leading them. And David entrusted himself and is wanting us to realize that not only in the good times, but in the dark places, this new place where he's kind of leading these sheep, these higher ravines and things, these will be sort of darker places. If you've ever done mountain climbing and stuff, you can end up in a space where it's quite dark. And David's reminding us, listen, both in these sort of very picturesque and sort of serene, green, calm, this idea of just sort of good times. God is there, but not only there, but he's in the dark places too. And David is saying, and he's calling out to us, and he's sort of witnessing to us, if you like, that God can be trusted in both of those seasons. That you can trust him in both of those seasons. And he is good with either, because no matter the circumstance, life with God is preferred over life without God. This is a significant statement. It's powerful. Dark times do not mean that God is absent. Dark times does not mean that God is absent. That somehow, you've maybe been disobedient, or somehow God is, punishing you for something. No, that's not what it means. Listen, God is with you. This shepherd leads this flock up into these upper terraces, these upper places that can be dark, but he's with them. And he knows that he can provide for them in the midst of that. We're an interesting people because when good times are here, as people of faith, we are quick to neglect God. We're quick to sort of live a spiritual, more apathetic faith. Maybe this summer, that's what happens. Summers are wonderful, but I also know that they can ruin our rhythms. And they can get into a place where all of a sudden, and we just, some of the things that really matter to us just kind of fade away. And so this morning I'm kind of saying, hey, I get that. Spiritually, that can be real as well. Our trust, our looking to God, our faith in Him and all can just kind of go away because we're having just so much fun and doing this, that, and the other and going all over, and we just don't really have time for Him, and we neglect. And then the dark places sometimes can really draw us in, and we're like so needy that we're just desperate. Or, God, you, right? And we kind of have this, I don't know, schizophrenic sort of up and down, yo-yo, all over the map faith. And David's just letting us know, it doesn't have to be that way. He never leaves you. He is with you all the time. I love what Paul said as well. Maybe this resonates more for you. It's in Philippians chapter 4. And he said, listen, I've had a lot. Like, I was doing well. Plenty is the word he uses. I've also been in need. But what I've learned is I can be content in all situations. I don't look at it one way or the other, being in need or having plenty as necessarily God blessing me or God leaving me. It's not about that. I just know that God's going to meet my needs. Done. Period. And that's what David's saying here. He's a shepherd and he lacks nothing. Move on, verse 5 and 6. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This table thing has always confused me, because when I think table, chairs, people, right? Isn't that what you think? It's not what it is. Where sheep are raised throughout the world, Africa, Western states, Southern Europe and all. The reference here to table, a shepherd who was writing this, who understood sheep, would be referring to these upper places where the shepherd has led the flock in the spring and the summer. They're called mesas in Swahili. It actually means that as well, and it likely from when the Portuguese. You got it. Thank you, Kenan. When they came into Africa, this Spanish word mesa meant table. Now, what's interesting about this, right? It says there, listen, you prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. The reality is there's always enemies around lambs, right? Sheep. There's always predators and everything, but it's not just that. And it says there that the shepherd would go and prepare a place. So they would go ahead, I already talked about this, kind of scout it out. But when they scouted it out, not only did they scout it out, but they would take supplies that would help the sheep be nourished. They would take salt. They would take other minerals and things, and they would take it up to this place where they are going to lead their flock to. But not only that, they would be scouring the ground, making sure that the vegetation and all was good, and they would see some of the poisonous things that, frankly, a lamb would just kind of be going along and just eating and grazing and having a good time, but they would all of a sudden start eating this poisonous thing that would cause great trauma to their body and all. And so the shepherd would be down, and he would be plucking and picking out this, that, and the other, and carrying these things off. And this is the shepherd who goes before and prepares the way for us. The sheep. Me the sheep. Us the sheep. Who goes before us. Who knows what's best for us. Who wants to lead us and guide us. Interesting phrase in there, and I remember as a kid reading this, and I thought it was just gross. You anoint my head with oil. Like, come on. I was told when my hair was oily, I was supposed to have a shower and shampoo and all that kind of stuff, and now in the Bible it's telling me to throw oil on my head. It was very confusing as a teenager. Interesting thing on this. So sheep are normally quite tranquil, right? They're pretty chill. The shepherd was just very observant as to the needs and could tell when all of a sudden the sheep were getting agitated. You could just see it, right? Like all of a sudden there'd be this little rustling around of the sheep and everything like this. And the shepherd knew what was going on, because if it was something that was going to attack the sheep, they didn't just kind of bounce around. They headed somewhere, right? But if it was just this sort of, the shepherd knew exactly what was going on. See, what was happening was these little flies were coming around, and they like the moisture of the nose of the lamb. Like, have any of you tried to sleep when you got a mosquito in the room? All right, impossible, right? Have you ever had a mosquito try to fly up your nose? I haven't, but this is what these little flies for lambs would do, is that they would try to fly up their nose because they like the mucus and the moisture and kind of implant themselves in there and create parasites and all kinds of issues, frankly, to the point where they could become blind. And it drove the lambs nuts. So they'd be jumping all over and trying to avoid it and everything like that, to the point where they would be banging their head on trees or rocks to just try to get rid of it. They'd be grinding their nose sort of along the ground. And I mean, this was trouble for the sheep. But the shepherd knew what the problem was. And the shepherd would come along and would see the sheep that was struggling. And he would have this mixture of oil and some spices and things. And he would apply that to the lamb's head. And as soon as he applied that to the lamb's head, the flies were no more, and there was calm. Doesn't that sound nice? I may not have flies bugging me in my life, but I got some things bugging me in my life. And I could use that sense of calm. The shepherd knew what the sheep needed. And he came along and personally applied it. Can you please think about that for your life? David said, I have a shepherd. I lack nothing. I've got a shepherd who understands, who goes before me. He knows the way. He protects me. He provides for me. Yeah, every once in a while he leads me down some paths that I don't want to go. But I know what's best for me. And I'm going to trust him all the days of my life. Because I understand his mercy and his love is going to be with me always. And so I am going to trust him. Interesting point about the applying of the oil. It's not a one-time thing. It wasn't like the shepherd saw this agitation, saw the problem, and would go over and apply the oil this one time. It was something that had to be regularly done until that problem was gone, the different season, if you like. Those flies were no more. Folks, that's the story of our life with God. It's not a one-time thing. It's not a weekend warrior kind of faith. It's a daily learning to entrust your life, your decisions, your way to this God, this shepherd who laid down his life for you, who knows the best way for you, who created you, who wants to meet your needs. It's a daily experience. It's a daily putting yourself under and saying, God, I need you. Jesus as my shepherd. You know, if you even want to just use that goofy little illustration of the oil, I need that. I need to be filled with your presence today through your Spirit. Is he your shepherd? Is it something you consider daily? Are you willing to entrust yourself to him? I pray that you will. I pray that you will. Be one of the greatest decisions you ever make.